Now, we've been trying to speak to as many industries to find out exactly how people are coping during this lockdown period. And as people continue to use music as one of the tools for comfort and entertainment in the wake of COVID-19, musicians, and on the other hand, are being negatively affected by the illegal copying, sharing and downloading of their songs. Now, the Recording Industry of South Africa, or RiSA, says that since the lockdown, there's been an alarming increase in online music piracy. And it also says that there's no need for this, as music has become more affordable and in some cases is freely accessible. So to talk to this a little more, we're joined via Skype by Pierre Rautenbach, acting attorney for RiSA. Pierre, thanks for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
Now, it's understandable that people are turning to music for solace, for comfort during this time. But online piracy, of course, we know hurts the industry in so many ways. Can you just elaborate on that and tell us a little bit more about the impact of this on musicians?
No, absolutely correct. As with many other industries, the COVID-19 pandemic and a national lockdown has crippled local musicians. Not only are live performances cancelled, but we've also seen, as you mentioned, an increase in online piracy. And we're currently looking at a mean average of 8,000 songs shared per week using only top 40 titles. Now, the negative impact of music piracy, it's threefold, really. You have the reinvestment in current talent, you have the discovery of investment in new talent that are curtailed, and then you have an overall reduction in royalties, which leads to an impoverished music scene.
But, you know, is it true, though, Pierre, that a fair amount of people actually don't even realize that piracy is illegal?
Yes. Look, this is part of why RiSA has embarked on a campaign. They want to raise awareness about music piracy, firstly, but secondly, they're calling on music lovers to access music from legitimate platforms. Now, in the past, the focus may have been heavily on prevention of copyright infringement, etc. But I think we're past that point, and we have to look at informing and educating the public that there are many of these online legitimate platforms are increasingly affordable and in most cases freely accessible, funded by advertising. And I think there's no real reason to pirate music anymore, given the availability of these legitimate services. And then obviously no reason to support unscrupulous sources.
So, Pierre, how would you describe the manner in which the law is currently addressing this issue? And also, how are they dealing with pirated material?
Okay, well, pirate copyright mainly applies to all original works that has been reduced to a material form, and that goes for sound recordings as well. Now, the owner and holder of the license can take legal action where there is an infringement, and remedies include the recovery of the infringing material, damages, and the interdict preventing further infringement. Of course, the courts have the power to award additional damages, and the Copyright Act makes provision for criminal penalties, for example, a fine of 5,000 rand or imprisonment of up to 3 years per infringement for a first-time conviction. So there's really that. But again, I think all of that can be passed to the side when you look at the availability of services, and that these are now free and ad-funded, and that people can access music without having to break the law.
And of course, as RiSA, they've done quite a bit of research. How extensive and detailed were your findings in terms of the numbers and the songs or artists that have been hit the most?
Well, we've been looking at this specifically when the lockdown started, and also correlating this with international trends. So interestingly enough, streaming has reduced by about 10 to 11% globally when you look at Spotify and Apple Music, etc. So, for example, the Spotify Top 200 chart were down 226 million plays since this whole thing started. And if you translate that to the local market, you're looking at a potential loss in streaming revenue of 15 million rand just over the next 3 months. Now, if you look at the music and the type of music that's being pirated the most, you're looking at house music, pop, hip-hop, rap, R&B, soul, gospel, dance. But really, if it's on the charts, you can be sure that it's being pirated. And that's really why RiSA has embarked on this campaign to firstly raise awareness, but secondly, calling these consumers of music to access using legitimate sources.
Now, Pierre, you said there is still, of course, a fair amount of education that needs to be done regarding piracy. And during this lockdown, we've seen many homemade humorous rip-offs of classic songs that's widely shared on social media. What, if any, are the music right infringements with regard to this?
Yeah, look, we'll have to get into the actual, you have the general song that is copyrighted, and then you have the lyrics that's separate to it. And then, of course, you have the mechanical rights pertaining to it. So if you do your own version, you'll see that with bands all over the world, they would do a cover song of the original. That doesn't mean that the original song is being infringed on. It's literally when you're just looking at the lyrics. And these rights are movable within that scenario.
So just to end this off, Pierre, you said that the music is now very accessible online. Where exactly can people go? What are some of those legitimate platforms that musicians are using, and how affordable are they?
Yeah, I think if I can just mention a couple here, Spotify, for example, costs 60 Rand or 59.99 a month, but it's also free if you want to go with the advertising funded package. So you listen a couple of songs and then there may be a short advert in between. Apple Music and Deezer provide a broad catalogue from 59.99 a month. Simfy Africa is at 25 Rand a month. Jukes, Tidal, Google Play goes for 49.99 a month. But as mentioned, the majority of these have this ad-funded thing. So really all you need to download the app and you can start listening to music. If you're on Wi-Fi, then you won't have any data cost or not significant. And obviously, if you're on 3D, there are some data cost. But many of these platforms allow for minimal bandwidth usage streaming when you're doing it via mobile.
Pierre Rautenbach, thanks for your time this morning. Pierre's an attorney who is acting on behalf of the recording industry of South Africa, talking to us about the increase in online music piracy since the lockdown. So as you heard there, he actually did give you some of the avenues where you can legitimately access music at very reasonable rates. All right, we have a few minutes left.